So in this lecture, we're going to study about some locators in depth. So basically, if we talk about Selenium WebDriver, there are 8 major locators through which we actually find elements on a web. So let's start with the very first thing that is called as ID. ID is always the first preference. It's very fast. I mean, as compared to other locators, ID is the fastest one. And like at times when we are working with ID of an element, there could be a time that ID could be dynamic as well. So it all depends. I mean, how a developer has designed the logic. At times, there are some values which are constant. There are some values which uh, gets changed in the ID, or at times the ID is completely dynamic as well. Right. So where like if we come across any such scenarios where we find dynamic elements. Now, dynamic elements, as in most of the time, you'll find IDs are dynamic in those elements. So, how we're gonna handle those scenarios? That is what we're gonna see that thing in depth in this lecture. Plus, we are going to study like all major locators. As in, after ID, we have name as an another locator. We have something called as a CSS selector and Xpath. Now, these two are very frequently used locators, right? Through these locators, we can handle any element uniquely on the page, be it a complex element, be it a dynamic element, right? Because there are some syntax which we need to follow when we are working on XPath or CSS. And like these are the two very frequently used locators as compared to other locators, right? So it is like it's not mandatory that all the elements will gonna have ID, all the elements will gonna have name, but for every element you should be able to see XPath and CSS selector, right? So we'll be discussing about XPath and CSS in very depth because after learning these two locators, you can handle any element on the web easily, right? You can create uh, any unique XPath or CSS of any particular element on the page, be it any dynamic or complex element, right? So we'll be learning about those strategies, and then there are some more locators available. Something called as class name, tag name. Then we have link text and the partial link text. So out of these locators, there are uh, total 8 locators available in WebDriver, which we majorly use. Out of these 8 locators, these 6 locators are like straightforward locators, right? I mean, where we straightforwardly need to give the value and we need to locate the element using that value. But these two locators are like can handle our dynamic elements as well, and there are actually some syntax that we need to learn in order to create these locators. I mean, in order to like work with XPath or in order to work with CSS, we need to learn some syntax, right? So the very first thing we're gonna start with XPath. Now, XPath, if I talk about XPath, let's say this is the element I'm going to handle, uh, the input box. Now, whosoever developer has created this text box must have defined some HTML code to this text box, right? If in case you want to see the HTML code, you simply need to right click on the element and click on inspect. So this is the HTML code for this particular element. I'll just edit this and copy and paste it over here. Right. So first we are going to learn XPath in depth. Right. So all major techniques, all major syntax of XPath we're gonna look in this lecture, through which you should be able to handle any element easily. Right. So if I talk about this element now, prior to like if I write a XPath for this element, there were some tools that people used to work with, something called as Firebug, and Firepath. Now, as you might be familiar of that the support of these two tools, these were actually plugins to Mozilla Firefox, right? Initially, they came as a free plugin, right? We can simply install as an extension to Firefox, as an add-on to Firefox, right? So these tools only used to work on Firefox. These were specifically designed for Firefox, and these tools helps us a lot while creating XPath, while inspecting or locating elements, and while generating a XPath automatically using this Firepath tool. But unfortunately, these tools are no more there in the Mozilla repository, right? So in any ways, like the concept that I'm going to teach you in this lecture, you will not be dependent on any tool, any third party tool or any third party plugin in order to create CSS or in order to create XPath of an element, right? These techniques are very simple and very straightforward. Just that you need to learn some syntax in order to create CSS or XPath. But yes, we will not be dependent on any third party tool. Although apart from Firebug and Firepath, there are other tools available in the market as well. There are other add-ons available, extensions available, not just for Firefox, even for Chrome. There are extensions available. Something that is called as CrowPath. I'm going to show you this crow path as well, how this crow path actually works, right? But before that, before we should become dependent on any of these tools, our internal browser actually provides us some tool through which we can actually generate a XPath or CSS, or we can manipulate these XPath and CSS easily, right? So these are the stuff that we actually going to learn in this lecture. So first, let's start with like the syntax of XPath. If I want to find the XPath of this element, then the syntax of XPath always it starts from double backslash. So double backslash, then we have tag name, square brackets, at the rate, attribute equal to value. So this is a basic syntax of XPath. And if I talk about this element, if I want to inspect this element on the page, if I want to create a XPath for this element, then it will be double backslash. Tag name over here is input, right? So this is the tag name. An attribute could be anything. It could be type, it could be class, it could be autocomplete, any attribute you can take. Most of the time we try with the ID. So I'm gonna take ID as an attribute. See, this is ID. ID equal to identifier ID. So ID equal to the value. Value is identifier ID. So this is the X path for this particular element. If you want to validate this X path, whether this is correct or not, whether this X path is unique or not, at times it may happen. There are other input elements on the page as well. And there are 2, 3 input elements which has got the same ID, right? So till the time your element is not unique, you'll not be able to work with that element, right? So how you going to validate it? Just copy this X path and go back to your browser. So over here, just press escape. You'll get a console window like this. So you just need to paste your XPath over here. But as soon as I paste it, I'm getting something that is undefined. This is because how Chrome understands this is XPath, we need to write $X over here in the beginning. $X stands for XPath. And then within the bracket and double quotes, we need to give this XPath. So now you can see that it is actually showing your element. And how come this is one element? How will I make sure that this is one single element only? What I'll do, I'll remove some part from here and just write double backslash input. This is also XPath, But input, there are 7 input elements on the page, right? You can see your HTML DOM, it contains 7 input elements. Now there are different input elements. If you want to see what all input elements are there, just press enter, expand this, and these are your 7 elements. So if you click on this is your first element, this is your second element, third element, and so on. So there are 7 input elements, right? Even if I don't write input over here, if I simply say asterisk, asterisk means any tag on the page, right? So there are total 356 elements on the page. One 356 means 356 HTML tags on the page. And one HTML tag is equivalent to one single element on web. Right. So if there are 356 tags, there are 356 elements on the page. But we need to form up a XPath that should return us only one single element. So instead of using asterisk, we specify the tag name. And along with that tag name, we specify the attribute that belongs to that tag. So attribute and the value, and now we'll give at the rate attribute. Attribute could be anything. Even if you want to give name, I can give name, because name is also an attribute over here. So name equal to identifier. I can even give this like, and if I press enter, this will return me one single element. If you open this, see, when you do a mouse over onto this, it highlights your element. So you'll come to know that this is your element. If you click on this, you should be able to see your element in the HTML DOM, right? So this is how, I mean, this is a very simple syntax of creating XPath. Now, when a XPath is created by an attribute of an element, it could be type, class, JS name, ID, anything that you see over here. If a XPath is generated by the attribute, we call it as a relative XPath. So this is a relative XPath. Now, what all sort of XPaths are there? We have relative XPath, we have something called as absolute XPath, and there's something called as partial XPath. Now, if I talk about absolute and partial XPath, these are majorly generated by the location of an element on the page. So location could start from this topmost hierarchy, that is the HTML tag, and then going down and down to your element. So what all tags that comes in between, you need to generate a XPath based on those tags, right? Based on the location of that element. So we'll be talking about absolute and partial XPaths as well. But first, let's focus on the relative one. So this is what the XPath that we have written for this particular element, and this is a unique XPath. Right. So we found that there is only one matching node or one matching HTML tag, which is for this particular XPath. Right. Now, at times, it may happen that there is some other input element on the page which has got the same name. Now, in this scenario, what we can do, we can concatenate some other attribute as well. Concatenate, as in, let's say the name is identifier, I can concatenate another attribute by saying at the rate ID equal to identifier ID. So this is what I can use as well. So this is called as concatenation in XPath. So if we go over here, then instead of this, if I write this will give me the same output, right? So we can keep on concatenating the elements. If in case you want to concatenate any other element, say at the rate type equal to email, you can keep on doing this, right? And this thing, instead of writing it like this, I can even write it like this, right? So this is how you can concatenate. So this is what is called as concatenation. Till the time you won't get unique element on the page, you can keep on concatenating it, right? Or at times, even this approach will not gonna work. You might not see unique element with this approach as well. I'll show you one element. You can go to this practice website called as qa.waytoautomation.com. Now, when you're trying to fill this form, or maybe you're trying to click on the submit button, if you right click and click on inspect, you'll see this element over here, right? So what I'll do, uh, see, at times we get some logs over here. So in order to clear these logs, you simply need to say Control L, right? And then write the XPath $X in double quotes. The XPath would be input at type equal to submit. See, I got two elements, right? So the first element, let's say this is the first element. I'll edit, copy, and I'll paste it over here. This is my first element, right? Like if you open this, this is your first element. If I click on the second element, this is my second element. I'll edit the HTML, copy, and paste it over here. Now you can see both element has got same tag, same attributes, same values. So how will you make a unique XPath? No matter whatever you concatenate, you'll always gonna get two matching nodes. You'll always gonna get two elements. See, even if you do type equal to submit, you concatenate, you do class equal to button, you do value equal to submit, you're always going to get two elements, two matching nodes. Then how will you make a unique XPath? So there are many approaches which we can follow, in which one of the simple way is put a bracket over here, and then in the square brackets, you can define index. Index as in first will point to the first element. And let us see if it is pointing to the first element. See, we got one matching node. Click on this. This is your first element, right? And then if I do 2, this will point to your second element. So this is second element. Right. Although the above hierarchy looks like similar for these elements, right? But I mean, this is actually finding unique element, right? So you need not to worry about it. So if you have two elements or more than two elements with same XPath, you can write something like this based on indexes as well. You can make them unique, right? So this is one way of doing it. But there are many other approaches through which you can make this thing unique by concatenating their parents or siblings, right? So we'll gonna see all those things in depth, right? But before that, I was talking about the simple element where we have ID. Let's say I'm gonna take this ID only as in the identifier ID. So I was talking about at times the element is dynamic. Now dynamic as in maybe the next time you visit this application, this is a Gmail application. So if you talk about social networking websites, Gmail, Google, Facebook, Twitter, majorly of these applications, I mean, their elements are majorly dynamic. This is because there are like maximum traffic on these websites. So at times, people try to break their applications, try to hack these applications, try to inject some unwanted script in these applications, right? to manipulate the elements on the page. So they generally create these elements in such a way that no matter if you have handled this element uniquely right now, next time you may run the script and the element XPath gets changed, or the CSS gets changed, or the locator gets changed, right? So let's say if I talk about this identifier ID, maybe the next time when I run this, identifier ID changes to something like this. Then I'll again run it, it changes to something like this. It may happen, right? Here the ID is dynamic, right? If I show you some element over here, this is like, I was talking about this practice website. You just need to fill up this information. It's a sample information, it's a sample, a dummy form. So if you add your details over here and click on submit, you should be able to log into this application. And once you log into this application, this is some section on dynamic elements. If I click on this, I'm gonna show it to you. There's one element which has got ID as submit. So if I click on this submit, you're gonna see the ID changes. So this is a dynamic ID, right? Maybe you have created a XPath like input at ID equal to submit. Next time it won't work because every time the ID is changing. So how are you going to handle this scenario? Let's say this much part is dynamic. I'm going to remove this much part. Only this is constant. So if I use this, it won't work. But if I add a keyword that is starts with at the rate ID, sorry, starts with add ID equal to this. This will locate your element, right? One unique element. Similarly, maybe the developer was very smart. He has created the initial part as dynamic. This part is dynamic, the ending part, even the initial part is dynamic. So let's say only this much is constant. Then how you going to handle it? So next keyword that you can add over here is contains. So any element that contains den, it should locate that element, right? So this is what contains is. Now let's come to the point where we got stuck with a scenario where we have elements something like this, right? Now in order to handle these elements, duplicate elements, or in order to create a unique XPath, what we can do is, let's say if I we need to understand some concept of parent, child, siblings, right? Like let's say if I talk about this element is a child of a div element. This input element is a child of a div element, right? Same way if I talk about this div has got one input element as a child and one div element as a child. So this div has got two child, right? Now input has got a sibling as div and div has got a sibling as input. For input, div is like a following sibling, and for div, input is like a preceding sibling. So this is some of the concept that we may need to understand in order to work with siblings or parent and child relationship in XPath, right? Now it's very easy to build up a relationship over here. As in, if I talk about an element that is this identifier ID, right? I want to go to the parent of this element. So parent of this element is div. There is one way I can do backslash dot dot. So it just gives me this element, div with the class this, right? This is one way of doing it, right? I can even say parent colon div. This will also give me the parent, right? So this way I can go to the parent of this hierarchy as well. Maybe let's say I'm starting from parent itself. So let's say if I start from a parent, that would be this, right? So parent with class, parent is div. I'll start with this div, which has got class equal to this. See, there are two parent. There are two parents with the same hierarchy, like same div as a tag and same class as this. Right? It could be somewhere down in the hierarchy. Right? There are two divs. One is this. I'll show it to you. So one is this, the second one is this. Both has got the same class name. Right? And if you look over here, the parent for this div is this, and the parent for second div is also the same class, right? So even their parent are having the same hierarchy, I mean the same attribute and the same value. So don't worry about it, we're gonna make it unique for sure. But before that, let's just understand how we navigate from parent to child and child from parent, child to, and from child to parent, right? So let's treat it as one only, right? Don't think that this is a duplicate element. Let's say this is we are pointing to this hierarchy at the moment. Now I want to go to the child of this hierarchy, that is the child is div. So what I'll do, I'll simply say backslash and the child name. Now it is showing 6 child. This is because this is a duplicate hierarchy, right? There is a duplicate element with the same div and same class, and that element has also got 3 child. So this element has got 3 child, that element has also got 3 child. So let's treat it as 3 for the timing. So now parent and the child. If I want to go to the first child, so I'll say div bracket 1. This will give me the first child, that is xp9hp. See, if you want to go to the second one, this is the second child. Third one, this is the third child. This is how from parent to child you can go like this. But what if I want to go from child to parent? Child to parent was backslash dot dot. See, this is the parent, or the parent tag. The parent, as in there's a keyword called as parent, then double colon, and the parent is div. It will take me to the parent. Now I don't want to go to the parent. I want to go to the sibling. So sibling for this particular element, sibling for the third element. We are right now on the third element. For this element, there are two siblings, but these are preceding siblings. So what I'm gonna do, I'll say backslash preceding sibling colon colon div. So it gives me two. Two as in, see, these two are for this parent and these two are for a different parent. So right now we are pointing to these two only. So in this two as well, I want to go to the second one. So in the index, I'm not gonna give 2, I'm gonna give 1. Why? Because 1 is just the preceding sibling to this element. And if you want to go to the second one, say 2, which is first in the hierarchy. Now we are at this element. This Xpath is of this element. Right? We know that how to make it unique. I can make this one unique as well. Just that I need to follow some sequence, as in we are on this element at the moment. So I mean, whenever you're working with XPath, you need to understand that the last hierarchy is your element, right? So prior to that, there is a parent. Prior to that, there is another parent. So this is the parent for this particular element. Now, if I want to start with parent, I can again say div and backslash. So div is this. Again, till the time I'll not get one matching node, I'll keep on traversing to the parent. So right now I am over here. Maybe you think that the class name is not there with the second element. You can try using the class name at the rate class equal to this. Still we are getting two matching nodes. We can try one more hierarchy above, div. See, still we are getting two matching nodes. But here I could try to use this JS name attribute. Oh, shit. So the entire hierarchy is gone. Give me a moment. So yeah, I mean, see, this is a tricky part, but this is what you need to understand. So how are we going to move it? Let's say I start from this. I start from this div at the rate JS name equal to this. We got two elements, right? Now, if I want to go to the child, child will be straightforward. Backslash child, then again backslash child, then again backslash child. So six child. I want to go to the first one. This is the first child. Right, I can write one as well, or I can say at the rate class, the child that has got a class, that is this. So I got two elements, but I want this to be unique, right? So what I can do, I'll start with the parent again. Now, this is the parent, right? Where we have taken JS name as this. So this is common to the other element in this HTML DOM. So I can go one hierarchy above again. So again, I can say the parent to this div is another div. And second element has got the same hierarchy. But here, maybe the JS name is different. We need to find out a unique value. There must be something that is unique. At the rate JS name equal to this. See, I got one matching node, one element only. If you click on this, this will point to your this element, the child element, which is the last element. So this is your element. In the entire XPath, your element is over here in the last hierarchy. Right. So now our location is over here. We are at this location. Right. I want to navigate to the sibling. Right. So these are the following siblings. So if I say, if I again write the same path over here, say backslash following sibling colon div. See, this will return me two siblings, right? Because this has got two siblings, right? If you want to go to parent, simply say parent colon div. There's only one parent. Now we are getting unique elements, right? So I want to go to the following sibling div, but there are two div. I want to go to the first one. So this is just below this hierarchy. So first one is this. If you want to go to the second one, then this should be the second one. This is how you can navigate in between the siblings. Or you can say following sibling, if you simply say div, this will give you two. You want to say at the rate a sibling with JS name equal to this. So with this thing as well, okay, this has got JS name div at JS name just give me a moment. Okay, there's a spelling mistake. JS name, right? So this way as well you can combine the relative part, or you can combine this is what is called as the location of an element, right? So this way you can create any unique XPath, right? You can move up and down in the hierarchy, right, to the parent and to the child and to the siblings. So using these approaches, you should be able to locate a unique element on the page, right? So same way, if we are talking about the element which was there initially on qa.way2automation.com page, this element, we can make this thing as well, we can handle this element as well unique. How? By simply creating a unique XPath. So XPath, let's say we're going to start from $X. Now just look at it carefully. How the unique XPath will be formed. At times the XPath might be very lengthy. So don't worry about it. Simply say double backslash input is the tag name at the rate type equal to submit. We know that we're going to get two matching nodes because there are two elements with the same attribute, same values, and the same tag name. Now we'll go to the parent of this element. Parent is div. Another element has got the same parent, right? So again, we'll go to one more parent, that is another div. So we are up till here over here, right? Again, we'll go to one more parent, that is form, and both has got the same hierarchy. Maybe the form over here is the ID is load form. So I can give at ID equal to load form. Again, we got two matching nodes, right? So maybe I'll jump one hierarchy above div, sorry, div, and div with ID equal to load box. This time I got one matching node. So this is the unique XPath. This is the unique XPath for this submit button. No, it could be for this submit button or it could be for other submit button as well. How you gonna come to know that this is for this submit button only? If I press enter and if I expand it, if it highlights my element, see, it is highlighting my element. So this is the XPath of this element, right? If your element is highlighted, that is your element. And if you're not getting any further indexes, it means that this is a unique XPath for this element, right? So this is one way of finding it. I mean, there are another ways as well. Maybe you don't know which tag your element belongs to. Like I want to locate this sign in link. I don't know which tag it is associated with. So I don't know the tag name. I say asterisk. Asterisk finds everything on the page. Then even I don't know the attribute. I can simply say contains any element that contains text as sign in. Locate that element. See, if you mouse over onto this, your element is located. This is what one matching node, right? So you can try finding the element with the text of that element as well. If you are very much sure the text, there are no spaces or other things, then instead of contains, you can simply use text equal to sign in as well. So you can simply say text and then text equal to sign in. But over here, there could be a chance that there could be some spaces over here. That is the reason it is not identifying it. Or maybe I've written ID on this. Okay, yeah, see. So this is the syntax, text equal to sign in. If there are no spaces in sign in, if you know the exact text, you can find it like this. Otherwise, if you want to find it with a partial text, Like this is a whole big text, already have an account. I can find it with a partial text as well. If in case I want to locate this element with a partial text, if I give it like this, it won't work. But if I say contains text like this, it will actually gonna work. So this is how you can make a use of like contains in text as well, or you can find any element with the text of an element as well, right? So these are some of the stuff that we have studied so far in XPath, and these are the things which will actually going to help us a lot in locating elements uniquely on a web page. Right, through these approach, you can handle any element easily on the page. Right, now in the next lecture, we're gonna see some more tips on XPath, and we're gonna try generating the absolute XPath as well for an element, absolute XPath and the partial XPath. And then I'm gonna show you some tools which will gonna make your life very easy. Like if in case you're not comfortable in writing XPath, then these tools will actually going to help you in generating those XPath. Although the tools are open source, but again, I would recommend you to practice this stuff, like watch this video lecture again and try practicing this on your own, because if you are familiar with these syntax, you will not be dependent on any tool, any third party tool, right? So that is what we're going to look in the next lecture. Thank you.